Hey everyone, do you ever feel always busy, like burnt out by your to-do list, unhappy, unfulfilled, barely enough time to make your goals happen? Well, maybe you feel haunted about balancing it all and feel like there's more for you out there, but you just have to figure out how to take back your time the guilt-free way. Well, if feeling overwhelmed with your career business, with your to-do list sounds familiar, you are going to love this episode with my guest, Christy Wright. Christy Wright is a #1 national best-selling author, personal development expert, and host of the Christy Wright Show. She's been featured on the Today Show and Fox News, in Entrepreneur and Women's Day magazines. And since 2009, she has served at Ramsey Solutions, where she teaches on personal development, business, and faith. I've heard Christy many times on the Ramsey Show with Dave Ramsey. She was actually sitting in his seat today when I interviewed her. If you're watching the video, you can see. And I was thrilled about her new book. It's called Take Back Your Time, right here. And we talked about all about life balance. She's also a busy mom like me and a career woman. And even though both of us are in the trenches with little kids and trying to make it all work, we are learning so much every single day. So I hope you find these lessons today helpful. Make sure you stay until the end for Christy's final words of wisdom for you, because I know I needed to hear what she said today, and I think you will too. So sit back, take a deep breath, enjoy this episode. It brought me so much clarity hearing Christy, and I know it will help you too. Well, welcome to the Classy Career Goal podcast, Christy. I am so excited to have you here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited about this.
Yeah, and we could talk for hours and hours on this topic of balance, so we'll try and keep it short. I know we have an ending time, but I know our listeners are going to love this conversation. Now, you're a busy mom with 3 kids and a career. You know what it's like to be stretched too thin. So share with us a little bit about your career journey, where you started, what you do today, in case people don't know, and what you've learned about life balance and taking back your time.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me and thanks for asking. It's interesting. I have been a business coach for over a decade. I have helped women find their business idea. I've helped them get started in business and launch their business. I've helped them grow their business, add team members, many of them over 7 figures. So I have been in the business world for a decade. And what's so interesting, Anna, is in over 10 years of doing this, the #1 question that I'm asked is not a business question. It's how do you balance it all? How do you balance it all? How do you manage your time? How do you do all the things? And I just found that fascinating because as a business coach and content creator, I'm always paying attention to what my audience is saying, what they're asking. And this was such a strong theme that I thought, I want to go in this space. I want to solve this problem for them. I want to help them. Well, that interest started years ago, right? It took on a whole new meaning when I started having kids, because it's not that I wasn't busy before, but I will say that before I had children, I had not experienced the pull that you feel when you're having to make choices in how you spend your time between your work and your kids, or your business and your family, and so on. And I think that, like I said, it's not that I didn't have to make those decisions before I did, but it was not so emotional. It was not so difficult. And it just became harder and harder. And so I had 3 kids in 5 years, and really I'm still in the trenches. My oldest is 6 years old. So I'm still in the trenches. My youngest is 1. And so I still am figuring it out. I'm still living this out day to day. And so I think it's one of those things that the combination of seeing how hard this is for people and then experiencing myself how hard it was made me want to not only take on this problem, but I wanted to bring a new message to a very old conversation. And what I found, Anna, is that, we talk about this subject of life balance all the time. How do you balance it all? How do you balance all the things? And we think, oh, well, is it 50-50 split? Am I supposed to work 50% of the time and be at home 50% of the time? And that's not it. We try that. It still doesn't work. And it's not even realistic. Or maybe we think, oh, I've got to do everything for an equal amount of time. I've got to have this much time working out and this much time with my kids and this much time in my business and so on. And that's not remotely realistic. And then we've got all the analogies, juggling balls and spinning plates and walking the tightrope and all the things. And we can do all of these things and still feel out of balance. And so it really led me down this path of, what if we're asking the wrong question? What if our ideas about balance are just downright wrong? What if I can redefine it and actually give a message of freedom in a space that is typically filled with guilt.
Yes.
And so that's what I set out to do with my new book, Take Back Your Time, the guilt-free guide to life balance to help bring some hope into this space.
Yes. Share it all with us. We all need it because so much is talked about productivity. And I like how you said, it's not about productivity. It's about doing what matters. And I'm very much in line with that thought process too. So how do you figure out what matters and what are the right things to get done?
Yes, that's a great question. And I want to highlight something you said because you make a very good point. I think that in our quest for balance, because we think that is the end game, we've got to have balance. We think that the path to that is just being more productive. And so we put actually more pressure on ourselves. I've got to wake up earlier. I've got to have a better morning routine. I've got to run harder and faster throughout my day. I'm going to be more productive, more efficient, stay up later. And then I'll be balanced. Then I will have balance. I will feel like everything is right in my world. And what's interesting is we try that and we do that. We wake up early, we multitask, we are so efficient, so productive, stay up late. And what happens is, we're just exhausted. We don't feel any more balanced. We don't feel like we're doing any better. The guilt is still there, but now we're weighed down with guilt and we're exhausted. And so I think that, like I said, I think we're asking the wrong questions and pursuing what we believe this is the solution that's actually not the solution at all. And so the way that I define balance in my book, Take Back Your Time, is life balance is not doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time. The way you said it is, it's about doing what matters. Well, what's interesting is when you do the right things at the right time, you will actually feel that sense of balance that you've been looking for. But it didn't come from doing everything. It didn't come from working harder and faster. It came from actually doing just the right things. I think it was Peter Drucker that said, there is nothing so useless as doing with great efficiency that which shouldn't be done at all. And if we're not careful, we will plow through our to-do list. We will run so fast to get to all the commitments on our calendar. And at the end of the day, we're exhausted and out of balance, but it was simply because we did not do the right things. And so I help people in my book identify what's right for them and then spend time on those things and then train yourself to be present for those things. And all of those are key ingredients to feeling that sense of balance. But to your point, if we're going to do the right things at the right time, well, we need to know what the right things are. Here's the best news about this message. You get to decide what's right for you. So a way to ask yourself this in a really simple conversational way would be, what's right now? Another way to say this, or what we're trying to get to, is what is important right now? Not what I like to do, what sounds fun, what do I have FOMO about, what's a good idea in another lifetime, what are my friends doing, what do other people think I should do? No. When you take away all the other variables and you just ask yourself this one, what's right now? You get a very different answer than if you ask yourself what is good and fun and interesting and what do I want to do and what should I do and what does my friends think I should be doing. What's right now, what is important right now, that is the thing that you want to be focusing on, and that will change as your season changes, as your week changes, as your day changes. So let me give you an example, and this is very real time for me. Several weeks ago, I got a text from one of my very best girlfriends that she was taking a girls' trip, wanted me to go. It was going to be so fun, like just beautiful, awesome, all the things, like the thing that you would have major FOMO about. You're like, everybody's going, everybody's in, this sounds so fun. It's this beautiful location, drinks with little umbrellas in them. I'm like, this sounds amazing. Okay. I'm like, yes,
I need to go there.
Same. FOMO sounds fun. Friends, all my friends are going. The pull towards going was so strong. If I asked myself any of those normal questions I asked myself, but the timing of this trip happened to fall right smack dab in the middle of my kids going back to school, of my final week of seminary work when a paper is due. And oh, by the way, in the middle of me launching a book on time management. So when I asked myself, is this right now? No, Anna, it's not right. It's good. It's fun. It's FOMO. It's girlfriends. It's all the things. But a good thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. It actually turns into something that you feel guilty about or burdened by or stressed about. It takes the joy out of the very thing that should be joyful. And so what's so great about asking yourself this question, what's right now? It gives you permission to focus on what's right and shake the guilt of things that are not right. Because then, well, just because something's not right now, doesn't mean it's never right. I will go on a girls' trip, maybe next spring. We will go again. This is not the only time I can do this thing. And so it helps you shake the guilt and gives you the freedom to focus on what's in front of you. So I can be there for my kids' first day of school. I can be working on my seminary paper. I can be present for interviews like this one, because I know I'm doing what's right. And what's amazing is I actually don't feel guilty about saying no. I feel much more stress-free because I know I'm doing what's right. It's one of those things that when you realize what's right, your shoulders relax. When you recognize what's right and you spend your time on it, you make the decision to commit to what's right now, you go, okay, this is what's right. And I feel peace. I feel balance. I feel confident in my choice that I made. I feel happy with how I'm spending my time. And I think, Anna, when we say we want balance, that's what we're really after. I think we just want to feel good about how we're spending our time. I think we would just want to be proud and confident in our choices. I think we want to feel peace in a chaotic world where we have more coming at us than we could ever possibly have time for. And when you ask yourself what's right now, and you do that, all of those things fall into place for you.
I love that too, because, and I know how it feels too, when you have this to-do list that's a mile long and you just take those important things off, and you like put it on a different list, and it's like, oh, that feels, I can get that done, So it kind of moves into because I know you talk about to-do lists as well in your books as well. Like how do you do, what's your take on to-do lists? How do you like to do it?
So here's one of the things. You can do this with your calendar or with your to-do list, but in general, we women are terrible at prioritizing. Terrible. So if anybody's watching this video, they'll see this. It's as if everything is on an equal playing field. Just imagine just a straight horizontal line. And we've got all these things that fall on this line. Even how we talk about it well, I've got to pay bills, and I've got to work out, and I've got to reorganize my attic, and I've got to make homemade cookies for the whole neighborhood, and I have to feed my children, and I have to have my quiet time. Okay. Listen, all of these things are not created equal. Feeding your children is not in the same hierarchy of priorities as reorganizing your attic. And until we realize that some things are more important than others, then we are always going to be stressed and anxious, because when push comes to shove and two things need us, like they always do, we don't know how to make decisions. And so we just try to multitask to do it all at the same time. Your freedom is going to come from prioritizing. Your freedom is going to come from acknowledging that there are some things that are more important than other things. So what I want you to do is take this horizontal line that you plan your list on, and I want you to flip it and make a hierarchy, top to bottom, first, second, third. If I get nothing else done, what's the most important thing I get done? Probably feeding your kids, just a guess. If I get nothing else done, what's the second most important? I've got to pay bills. If I get nothing else done, what's most important? And you go through your list top to bottom, and you, maybe for the first time in your life, prioritize. You determine the importance of things in order of priority. And what's so interesting is when things fall below the line, because they always will, because you're always going to have more on your calendar and to-do list than you really have time for, most likely, if you're a busy, hard driving, goal-oriented person. Then at least you know that when things fall below the line, because they will, the right things are falling below the line. Oh, I didn't get around to reorganizing the attic. I didn't make those homemade cookies for everyone in the neighborhood. Turns out that actually wasn't important. It was an idea that popped in my head, like, hey, you should reorganize your attic. Hey, what if we made cookies for everyone? That's a cool idea that pops in your mind. Okay, it's an idea. That's all it is. We have 100 more a day. We've got to learn to let go of those ideas that are not important, that are not moving us in the direction of where we want to be and what we want to do. And then it's going to set us free from the pressure and the guilt for feeling like we have to do everything, because you don't have to do everything. You just have to figure out what the right things are and do that. When you do that, man, you will feel so much freedom. And then you realize the person in control of your calendar, the person in control of your to-do list is you. So when you say no to something, whether that's making homemade cookies or cleaning the bonus room or whatever that is for you, you actually choose that no. You feel empowered and powerful. Like, I'm not going to walk in the playroom and go, oh, I'm a bad mom, it's a mess. I'm going to know I chose that no. I chose to fight for the rooms that I actually care about. This one didn't make the cut. I'm not a victim to my circumstances or my calendar, my to-do list. I'm in control of my no and my yes, and I'm not going to feel guilty for my no because I chose that no. But what's amazing, Anna, is if we can simply shift our focus, and I talk about this in the book, and instead of focusing on the no, the thing we said no to, the thing we didn't show up for, the thing we didn't get to on our to-do list, if you would focus on the yes, what you said yes to, what you did show up for, what you did accomplish on your to-do list, you will feel so proud of yourself. You will feel so proud of how you're spending your time, and you will shake so much of the guilt. But as long as you live your life focusing on the negative, the 2 items you didn't get to on your to-do list, the one thing you had to decline on your calendar, the areas that you feel like you're falling short, then you will consistently live in a narrative that you're failing, and you're not. All you have to do is flip your focus. Instead of focusing on the no's, focus on the yeses. Instead of focusing on what you didn't get to, focus on what you did do. Because as long as you live your entire life focused on what you didn't get to, you're going to feel guilty, but that's a personal choice. You can flip your focus, and because it's not about the no anyway. It's about what that no enables you to say yes to. For example, in the evenings when I get home from work, from 5:30 to 7:30, I want to play with my kids. I don't want to clean the house spotless. I'll pick up the rooms that are important to me, but the rooms that aren't, that are going to get messy again, I let them go on purpose, intentionally. So again, when I walk in the playroom and it's a mess, I don't feel like a failure because I go, oh, I chose that no. And in fact, that no, choosing not to clean up the playroom, for example, allows me to be present and enjoy my kids and play with them 5:37. That's a better yes. So what does that no allow you to say yes to? I want you to focus on what you are doing and watch how that sets you free to be proud of how you're spending your time. Because I guarantee you, no one listening to this podcast is sitting on the couch eating Cheetos, binge watching Netflix all day. You're doing something with your time. Be proud of what you're doing right instead of feeling guilty for what you perceive to be doing wrong. You're doing a lot of things well. You just need to acknowledge it.
I love that. And I feel like it also leads into, because I know you work with a lot of women who want to start businesses. And what I see is, there's these dreams and these goals, and it never makes it above the line that you're talking about, like the hierarchy of like what they're meant to do, what their purpose is, what they really want to do with their life. So can you speak to that too? Like, how can we make sure we put in our passions, our dreams, our goals, if it's to start a business, if it's to, grow your side hustle, like how can we get that above the line so we can make more time for that and pursue that passion?
Yes. I love this question because you're exactly right. You're exactly right. That's exactly what they do. So many people do. So the idea that here's the thing about kids, they take up a lot of time. And because we have this emotional connection to them, obviously we're their mother, it's kind of a strong one. We tend to feel like nothing we do is ever enough. Let me give you an example. Last August, so August of 2020, I was out of town for like 3 weekends in a row. And I was feeling really guilty about it. Like I was feeling really guilty about leaving my kids for 3 weekends in a row. And my husband's like, Christy, we've been in quarantine with our children for 6 months. You've spent a lot of time with them. You're okay to go out of town for 3 weekends in a row. But because I wasn't focusing on what I had done, 6 months of nonstop 24/7 interaction with the kids. I was only focused on what I was saying no to, meaning not being with them for 3 weekends, for example. So because for those of us that are parents and have kids, that can feel like nothing we do is ever enough. So to your point, our business and our goals and our priorities, even working out, other things don't make it above the line because the kids will fill up everything above the line unless you shove something above the line. So what I would encourage people to do is define success. What I mean by that is, what is success in terms of how many hours you spend with your kids, quality time? What is success in terms of how many hours you spend on your business? Let's just make up a number, okay? Let's say I'm going to spend 10 hours of good quality time with my kids in a week. I'm making up these numbers. You figure out what's right for you. And I'm going to spend 10 hours of good focused time on my business. Now, it could be 10 with your kids, 20 on your business. It could be 20 with your kids, 10 on I don't care what you do. But if you don't define success, you'll never achieve it. You can't achieve something you never define. It becomes this moving target. And we think, oh, well, I'll work on my business when there's time left over, and there's never time left over because kids fill up or whatever you're doing fills up everything above the line. So instead, what you're going to say is, I'm going to dedicate this amount of time. So let's just say 15 hours with our kids. If I spend 15 hours with my kids a week, I feel like that's good quality time. So you begin to look on the calendar. Okay, I spend with them 2 hours every night. That's 10 hours right there, Monday through Friday. And then I spend 5 hours with them on a Saturday. Okay, well, that's not 15 hours. I've defined success and I've put it on the calendar and I make sure it happens. Okay, well, where does the business go? Well, then the business is going to happen during nap times. Okay, 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, for example. You got that right there. Okay, 3 times 5, 15 hours. Or you could carve it out on that Sunday afternoon. You begin to plot these time blocks on your calendar, and then you can see, oh, I'm actually meeting my goal of time spent with my kids. I'm actually meeting my goal of time spent on my business. But you aren't meeting it because you're not defining it. You're just saying, what's enough with kids? I don't know. It's never enough. What's something for my business? I don't know. There's never time left over. Well, as long as your time management plan for managing your business in relation to your family is I'll work on my business when there's time left over, and I never seem to spend enough time with my kids. Can you see the problem there? There's never enough time spent with kids, so there's never time left over, so the business never happens. Define success. Define what your goal is. And of course, this is loose. There are going to be weeks where you're all in on your business or your kids need you more, and you get to define that. But that's the reason that in the book, when I talk about priorities, I say you need to have a set of priorities for the season you're in, what's most important in this season. You need to have your priorities for your get each week within that. Okay, what are my priorities this week? Because it's more specific, current, relevant to that time frame. And then what are my priorities even for each day? My priorities are for a Saturday look very different than a Monday. And so I can define success. What do I want this day to look like? And it just gives you permission to adapt to the season. For example, I'm going to say something and I'm going to say it deliberately. I'm going to say it aggressive deliberately. I'm going to say it really direct deliberately to like rattle people a little bit. I'm in a season of launching my book. Launching my book is more important than my kids right now. Now, I said that way on purpose. Now people are like, oh, she's the worst. She hates her children. Let me explain. We all have a set of fixed priorities, meaning concrete priorities that if push comes to shove and all hell breaks loose, this is what matters most. That's when we tend to say things like it's God, other, self in that order. That's awesome. My kids come before my work in my fixed priorities. Okay. So if all hell breaks loose, my kids, of course, are more important. Thankfully, we don't live in a world where all hell is breaking loose. We live in a world where we need to know how to manage our Tuesday. So within each season, you're going to have these another set of flexible priorities that are more specific and relevant to the time frame that you're managing your time in. And so while my kids are more important than my work in a if all hell breaks loose kind of way, and if I got a call right now that my son's in the ER, I'm out of here, Anna. Like this interview is over and I'm out of here. He's fine right now. He's at school. I'm with you. I can focus on you. And so what happens is then when we have these flexible priorities, we can say in this season, if I get a speaking event, if I get an interview opportunity and I have to choose between taking that or having dinner with my kids, I'm going to take that interview. Because what matters in this season is launching this book. And that doesn't make me a bad mom. It means that my priorities reflect the season I'm in. You know what was most important this summer? Being with my kids. I took every Friday off. I took them to the park. We went to the lake. We played. Kids and fun was the top of the priority list this summer. And so there's an ebb and flow to our lives where our priorities in any given season should reflect the season we're in. And so if you're in a season where things are really busy at work or your business, you're getting your business off the ground and you decide that, hey, this is top priority right now. I'm going to get help. I'm going to get babysitters. I'm going to talk to my spouse. We're going to figure out how to make it work with these other things I love. It doesn't mean I don't love my kids. And it doesn't mean I don't spend time with them. I do. It's just not as much time as I did this summer. And it means that if I have an opportunity to do what's in line with my top priority, which is getting the book out in the world, I'm going to say yes to that opportunity. What's interesting is, and I'm just realizing this as I'm saying it out loud with you, here's what I think happens. I think that we have this idea in our mind that we only have one set of priorities, and it's the fixed ones. The push comes to shove, kids always come first. But then the reality of our lives and our constraints and our interests, the practical side of managing our time, requires us to say yes to things that are opposite than that. Like my example of saying yes to interviews instead of having dinner with my kids. I think that's where our guilt comes from. I think our guilt comes from putting pressure on ourselves that our fixed priorities have to be true 24/7. We don't live in a world where all hell is breaking loose. We live in a world where like you need to know how to manage your Tuesday. There was as another example, there was a day a couple of weeks ago where I got into the office in the studio at 6 a.m. to do a satellite media tour. I had meetings all day and I had an event in our downstairs studio that evening. From the moment that I left to the moment that I got home, I never saw my kids that day at all. They were asleep when I left. They were asleep when I got home. But because I'm in a season of launching this book and I've decided this is what's right now, I didn't feel guilty for that day because I did what was right on that day. And so I just want to set women free. You get to decide what's right for you. And if not working on your business at all, because you're in a season where one of your kids really needs you, or you've got a newborn, or you're putting the business on hold, that's right for you. It doesn't mean you're not goal-oriented. It doesn't mean you're lazy, or you're not going to be successful in business. You're doing what's right now. And you get to decide what that looks like. And on the opposite extreme is if you're not seeing your kids as much as you want for this season, which is a blip on the radar in the grand schemes of your role as their mother in life. This is a blip on the radar. My children will not remember August and September of 2021 that mom wasn't at all the things all the time. But I'll remember that I got this book out in the world, that it was such a part of my heart to set women free. So just understanding the practical implications of prioritizing and knowing that you have permission, in fact, a responsibility to set priorities based on the season, week, and day that you're in. And it should reflect what's actually going on at the time in a very specific, current way. And that's going to set you free to do those right things at the right time.
I love that. I remember the day where I sat down and I actually was like, I'm going to take control of my calendar. And I hope everyone is like hearing how much control you have of your calendar, because it's like a commitment, and it's like, I remember that second where I was sitting and I was like, I'm going to be in charge of my calendar. And that you're so in control of your calendar. I love it. So tell us where people can find out more about you, find out more about your book, so that they can read and learn how to get rid of all of the guilt.
Yes, I love it. Well, Anna, thank you again for having me. You can go to christywright.com/balance. You can find all about the book there. You can, of course, get your copy of the book anywhere that books are sold. And there's actually, I haven't even talked about this much, but I wrote a workbook that goes along with it. So when you get the book, you get a free digital workbook that has challenges and templates to help you do some of the exercises I'm teaching you to do, from prioritizing to creating your ideal calendar. It's very tactical and practical. And so you can get that. The URL is in the book, and you'll get that whenever you get the book as well.
And I find like you have to go back and redo that ideal calendar like often. Like, I don't know how many times you do it, but I'm like, I got to redo it over and over again.
When your season changes, things need to change. And so often we don't adapt. So you're exactly right. This is something that when you enter a new season or something changes, you go back to step one. There's 5 steps on the path to balance. It's very tactical. You go back to step 1 and identify what matters most in this new season, follow the steps, and then you will always be doing the right things at the right time.
I love that. So final words of wisdom for someone who's trying to launch their dream business, career, trying to find the time to make it happen. What would you tell them?
Yeah, the message that I think is more important than anything about our time is that you are doing a good job. You're doing a good job. You're already doing a good job. We're going to build on that foundation. But I believe this broken record in the back of your mind that you're failing is a lie. It's not true at all. And it's stealing your joy and your ability to experience and enjoy the moment that you're in. So I want to set you free there and go, you are doing a good job. Know that and embrace that and live from that truth. And then we'll figure out what balance looks like from there.
I love that, because not many people tell us that. Like,
right.
No one goes
and
to
we can't hear it enough
and says that. So everyone listen.
I love it.
For sure. I needed to hear it. So thank you. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Christy. This was fun.
Oh, you're awesome, Anna. Thanks so much for Let me say it again. You're awesome, Anna. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.